And I'll just announce that when she gives me that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, it is 9 a.m. and the live stream has commenced. You may begin your meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Good morning, Council. I see that we have quorum. Also, good morning to senior SLT and to the residents in attendance. With quorum, I will now call this meeting of Wednesday, March the 5th into session, and we ask all those that can to please rise for the national anthem. You know, every time we play that, I'm waiting for someone, either around the horseshoe or in the audience, to break out and start the chorus, because it sure isn't going to be me with my voice. But maybe one of these days we'll have a soul that will lead us in the song. To the clerk, oh, no, I'm sorry. Land recognition statement at this time. We usually read the land recognition, and this morning we have Councillor Nesnick.
Thank you. Good morning. It's an honor to read this. The town of Pelham is situated on treaty land steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattie-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is protected within the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island live and work in Niagara. The town of Pelham stands in solidarity with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, acknowledging that our high standard of living is a result of the resources and lasting friendship of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you, Councillor Nesnick. And I now turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 4, adoption of the agenda. I have an amendment put forth by Councillor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Nisnik, that the agenda be amended to include item 11.2.9. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any comment, any discussion on the amendment? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The main motion now is amended. I have moved by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the agenda for the March 5th, 2025 regular meeting of the Council be adopted as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. On the agenda as amended, any further comments? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are now at item 5, being disclosure of pecuniary interests.
Thank you. And after viewing the agenda, is there any council member who have a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, we are now at item 6.1. Our first presentation is by Graham Pett, Vice President of the Pelham Advocates for Trees and Habitat Path. I will remind the delegate that you have 5 minutes to make your presentation, and you can make your way to the podium.
Mr. Pett, thank you for joining us this morning, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Junkin, Town of Pelham councillors and town staff. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you today regarding the Planning Department's report, Tree Protection Practices in Pelham. The cornerstone of PAS's mission is, of course, to advocate for protection of and the growth of Pelham's tree canopy and forests. Pelham's trees aren't just an asset, they are nature's gift to us, but too often we feel a gift that's taken for granted. The Public Works Trees report of last December noted that Council's strategic plan states the tree canopy is vital to the high quality of life within Pelham, that we must preserve, protect, and restore the town's urban and rural forests. And the expansion of the tree canopy on both public and private lands is vital for Pelham. Now, certainly the Planning Department report echoes a lot of these sentiments. Nice words indeed, but if we are to move beyond nice words and platitudes, then action is required. Therefore, we are asking you today that we seriously, and you must seriously, consider adopting the private property tree bylaw feasibility study. How can we grow, let alone protect our current trees if we continue to ignore the 80% of privately held lands in Pelham, and in particular those lands slated for development, which too often are simply clear-cut? Now, I've heard it said by some that council shouldn't be telling property owners what to do with their property. Yet we have any number of bylaws that prescribe things like fencing, etc. Council recently passed a bylaw, I believe, governing special events on private property. We even have a bylaw which allows the town to go in and cut someone's grass and charge them for it. Surely isn't saving a 100-year-old tree at least as important as ensuring the grass gets cut? Another reason to pass such a bylaw is this will give the town data on what's happening with trees on private property. Right now, we really have no clue. It's open season on trees for much of Pelham's lands. Now, this bylaw would, of course, exclude agricultural lands. Now, regarding new development, a bylaw can give the town the ability to measure and assess trees on these lands, to maximize protection of them. And if that isn't possible, then to ensure a sufficient number of new trees get planted and get planted properly. The Planning Department report makes reference to the Region of Niagara's Tree and Forest Conservation Bylaw. This bylaw wasn't designed to deal with trees in an urban environment, and it did nothing to prevent or mitigate the complete destruction of a forest north of Summerside Drive several years ago. Every last tree in that forest was razed in that massacre. This bylaw is totally unhelpful when it comes to development. Currently, our municipal partner, the town of Lincoln, are in the final stages of their developing their private property tree bylaw. Now, we note in the Planning Department report before you that it states a private property tree bylaw won't necessarily deter developers from clear-cutting properties. We certainly encourage close examination of the town of Lincoln's proposed bylaw. It contains strong language regarding tree inventorying and tree preservation plans, and importantly addresses the issue of the volume of tree replacements mandated for trees lost to development. The region's tree bylaw is completely silent on these matters. Now, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. As we can well imagine, Council is concerned about increased costs of enforcing a bylaw. Operational sharing options with Lincoln can be explored. Certainly is something we're doing in any number of other areas. So going back to the Planning Department report, option number 1 is a given. Of course, PATH, and I'm sure other groups, will continue to make efforts to cooperate and coordinate with the town and others to grow our tree canopy, Just last fall, PATH participated with the Nature Conservancy of Canada to plant 350 trees on the Lathrop properties. So something we're strongly committed to. But we also need option 3. Therefore, this isn't an either-or situation. PATH therefore requests Council to explore the feasibility of a private tree bylaw. We believe we must use every tool in the toolbox to get this vital task completed. That way, together, we can protect and enhance Pelham's natural beauty while helping to combat climate change. As our Indigenous neighbors remind us, let our present actions be guided by thinking of the next 7 generations to come after us. May we leave a better, greener Pelham than how we found it. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pitt. You did. Yeah, so maybe you should have stayed at the podium.
Oh, sorry.
Is there any questions, is there any questions that any councillor would like to direct to Mr. Pitt on the presentation? Nope, okay, I guess we're good then, Graham. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and I'll remind the next presenter, Mr. Pitt did go over the time limit by a couple minutes, so please, the next presenter, stick to the 5 minutes, please. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation from Graham Pett, Vice President of PATH, regarding tree protection practices in the town of Pelham for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on the presentation? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next presentation is by resident Mike Joan, and as you mentioned, just kindly be mindful of the 5-minute time frame. Thank you.
Mike has never broken any rules in his life. Thanks for joining us today, Mr. Jones, and you have the floor.
Well, thank you. And you're right. I'm very punctual, and I do not go over time limits.
Thank you, sir.
Saying that, I want to thank the town of Pelham and the town staff and the councilors for allowing me this opportunity to speak about the draft Pelham tree, private tree protection in the town of Pelham. I want to introduce myself, not to the town or town staff, but the public out there, because I know everyone knows me. I am a proud resident of Fawn Hill for the past 48 years, living in the same location in Pelham. And I am a tree hugger, and I'm proud to be a tree hugger. And I have witnessed over my years in Pelham hundreds of trees being destroyed for no real reason. And I want to say strongly that I believe option 3 is our only way to go forward. I believe that it is well overdue that the town comes up with a viable private tree bylaw. And I want to tell you that I've read the report, and I find the most important piece of information on the report is on page 2, paragraph 3, and I like to quote it. It is important to recognize that trees are a valuable public infrastructure and not simply ornamentation. Whether publicly or privately owned, trees provide environmental, economic, social, and health benefits shared by all of Pelham. As such, implementing strong tree protection measure is essential to preserve the town's green infrastructure, maintaining environmental resilience, ensuring the continuing benefits that trees provide for the current and future generations. I'd like to give 3 examples of unnecessary tree being removed in the last few years. The first was on Highland Avenue. New residents from outside the town bought the property that had 2 large, magnificent species of sugar maple trees that were 50 to 60 feet tall and cut them down just for make a pool. Now, I believe if we had a private property tree bylaw installed at that time, these new residents to Pelham may have looked at another location that would have been more suitable for a pool than having to cut these trees down if there was a bylaw. The next one I would like to talk about a developer. A developer who bought 11 properties along Station Street and bought the properties actually that were behind Station Street from the residents. And after doing so, he cut down every tree in that urban forest, except for one patch, a parcel that was a holdout. And when that holdout sold the property, he then tore out the rest of the trees. Then after doing so, he went to the town of Pelham to apply for a developer application. And of course, at that time, there was no need for a tree survey because there were no trees left. And my third one happens on Emmett Street. There was a property that was sold, I think in 2021, 22, in that age. And the owner who bought it tore down the house. He tore down the house, which I believed was to lower his tax rate increase. And then in just past January, he cut down 18 trees that were at least 10 centimeters in diameter at breast height. He tore them all down out. And you can expect to see this developer put an application in for 6 single-bedroom townhouses in the near future. These are just a few of the examples of hundreds of our trees that we've lost in the last years, and all because we do not have a private property tree bylaw. Pelham Council and the residents of Pelham should be extremely proud to be the leader that includes our natural infrastructure as part of our assessment management plans. I also believe it is time, and it's very important for us to be leaders by passing, not just going through the process of looking at, but actually passing a private tree law bylaw that would protect Pelham from unnecessary cutting of trees. And in my closing, I just want to talk to any libertarian out there that believes they can do anything on their property. I would like to ask them to go and try to build a nuclear plant or start a mining operation on your property, and you will see you will be violating the town's bylaws. And on that, I'd like to thank you for listening to what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And then I can see why you don't break rules, you just bend them a little.
I'll wait for if there's any questions.
Yes, thank you. Any questions to Mike's presentation? Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mike, and Mr. Mayor, through you, and to the residents who are here today, because I always give Mike Jones credit for my education and a lot of things to do with the environment and preservation and things. And many of the other people that I see sitting in the audience have influenced my thinking about things. Going back to the Steve Bauer Trail, when we met out there, and that was the beginning of my education in what we do, or what PATH does and what needs to be done to preserve the community. Because at that time I was up in the air of what approach I was going to take to it, and realizing that at the time that if you don't preserve it, it's gone forever once we do that. So, and I didn't have that full realization. It sounds rather obvious right now, but I didn't have it then. But PATH has done a terrific job in educating the public, and I appreciate that very much. And I believe that education has a real place in all of this. And you and I know we disagree on the tree bylaw. We've agreed to disagree on it. But I've chosen the path where I think that education is a big thing, and education should be broadened out to include things such as our parks and our greenness, giving people access to green places close to the residences. And I think as a town, we're doing a pretty good job of it. And I said I would be willing to listen to what we talked about in the past, and we've talked many times about this. But I think the role of education is underestimated, and it's available to us right now. You have the means of getting the messages out. We have the means of clarifying what we're looking at, and you have a means of adjusting what the message is, because I think the provincially significant wetlands is an issue. But I'll leave that, Mr. Mayor, that'll be my comments on it. But all in all, but I want to close by saying thank you to everybody for their support of the environment, first of all, in our community, and for the support that I've received intellectually and educationally from the folks who regard this as important. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. Any other comments on the presentation? Not seeing any.
May
Again,
I make a comment to Wayne?
go ahead, Mr. Jones.
I want to thank you for your kind words. And I'd like to tell you, make sure that everyone knows I'm here as a private resident, not as the president of PATH. And I would also like to tell you that, yes, education is very important, and I strongly support education. But unfortunately, education is not enough. We have too many people in this town that believe it is their right to destroy any tree on their property. And you will not change that by just education, unfortunately. So, Wayne, I agree to disagree. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again for your presentation, Mike. Turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council received the presentation from Mike Jones regarding tree protection practices in the town of Pelham for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. One last time, any comments, questions on either presentation? Not seeing any. Again, on behalf of council, we do indeed appreciate the time and effort that was put into these presentations this morning, and thank you for appearing before council. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the adoption of council minutes. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. C-04, 2025, regular council meeting of February 19th, 2025. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any errors or omissions.
Thank you. After reading the minutes over, any omissions or additions to the minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda. If there are any items to which council would like to lift from the consent agenda, now would be the time to do so.
Any items on the consent agenda that any council member wants to lift for further discussion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the consent agenda. If any members of council wish to speak on a topic on the consent agenda, now would be the time. This is a very relatively short consent agenda that can be considered as a whole as opposed to by category.
Yes. After viewing the consent agendas, any comments on either item? Not seeing any. I will we'll vote on that. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? I don't see any. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the motion was put forth by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the March 5th, 2025 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Through you, that now brings us to item 11.2, staff reports requiring action. Our first item is 11.2.1, tree protection practices in the town of Pelham. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that council receive report 2025-0057 for information, and that council directs staff to undertake option blank presented in this report to enhance tree protection practices in the town. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comments, questions on the staff report for the tree protection practices in the town of Pelham? We have to indeed come up with a option 1, 2, or 3 and give staff direction. I'll go to Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've being familiar with a number of municipalities within in the region of Niagara that have bylaws and people that are employed by those municipalities to enforce those bylaws, I found significant difficulties that they've been having relative to it. So I'm a little reluctant for option 3 because it hasn't. Part of it has to come back to what's within the bylaw itself, but there were people with hazardous trees within proximity of a dwelling that were required to get permits to take trees down. And the comment that they made was that their insurer had told them if the tree doesn't come down, but then they had to turn around and they had to go to the town and hire a certified arborist. And it's all the requirements associated with trying to fulfill this. I would openly admit where I live, I have an undergraduate degree in horticultural science, a master's of science degree, as well as long as additional piled higher and deeper stuff, as they refer to it. What I wound up having to do at my particular property, if I had to go through this, I would have been really ticked off because I felt personally qualified, but I'm not a certified arborist. And that's where you get into credentialism in terms of trying to determine what will work. The other part that came back was that they indicated as well in those municipalities they had to hire people specifically to make decisions for them because there was no one on the staff of the town itself that had those qualifications to be able to do it. So everything became a cost on top of a cost on top of a cost. So I appreciate the understanding. There was a comment that was made talking about having a tree inventory and managing these trees. Well, what do you mean by, I guess the question is, what's the word manage? Is that going in routinely and supervising that they're in good condition? If they're in a hazardous condition, would a person be then recommending that? So there's a whole bunch of things that go along with private bylaws. The intent, I understand. The implementation, I have a real challenge with. I concur with Councillor Olson. Education, information, enhancement of people. You buy a house. I know the concept of raising it to, just flattening everything within sight is not desirable for all of us. As well, we still have to come back to a landowner as a landowner. And agriculturally, if I wanted to clear a bush to put in farmland and make it into farmland, I can do that. So as a homeowner, I recognize it's not farmland, but it's something. So I just have challenges with this. I understand the 3 options that are there. It's a implementation of a specific bylaw that would restrict a person, I think, is going to be really onerous on the town at this point in time. Investigating it, I guess it's a worthwhile effort to investigate it. However, based on what I've seen in other municipalities, a large number of the residents were not in favor of it and found out after the fact that they were suddenly hamstrung by a bunch of things. And economics suddenly came into play with permits and everything else. So that's all I really want to say about it.
If I may, Councillor, at this time, any particular preference on the remaining 1 or 2, or would you like to hold off on that for a minute?
I think right now we're into the process of the official plan, and this is the opportune time to have things built into the official plan. Then we can look at specific bylaws thereafter. So that would be my suggestion at this point. Let's get the official plan through so that anything that's written would be matching the official plan perspective. So it's almost like we've got to do step 1 before we can move to the next one. We can't jump ahead and then go backwards because we found that out on other things. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may, I will go to the Director of Planning, Ms. Dusling. Would you like to see, obviously this is on the agenda, so this staff must be wanting a decision made, or can it indeed wait until the official plan, or it's a catch, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Right. Through you, Mr. Mayor, maybe I'll just try to outline what option 2 includes. I think option 1 and 3 are pretty self-explanatory. Of course, option 1 is keeping up with the status quo, doing further education as per the natural asset management plan that's been approved by council. And then option 3 would be that private bylaw. Option 2 is kind of the middle ground. And again, you could choose more than one option. But option 2 does include, through the new official plan, including policies to protect natural features that have been removed or disturbed without authorization in advance of development applications. So if you will, what that means in more general terms is in our natural features mapping, if there has been an area that has natural features, woodlands, and those trees have been disturbed before development application comes forward, as Mr. Jones earlier outlined in his presentation, staff would still identify that that area is a natural feature, even if those trees have been removed, and proceed on that basis moving forward. So it's as if the trees were still there. So we would include policies in the official plan in that regard. The second part of option 2 is to enhance, if you would, the woodland conservation bylaw. And that would or could include heritage trees, significant community trees, and woodlands between 0.2 hectares and 1 hectare. Right now, as you'll see on the screen, the region enforces woodlands that are 1 hectare and greater, and those are the lands in Pelham outlined in the greens. If we close this gap to include woodlands that are between 0.2 and 1 hectare, as shown in orange on the map, oranges on the map, we estimate that we would enhance our tree canopy by 133 hectares, approximately 133 hectares in the town of Pelham. Right now, the region is enforcing about 2,911 hectares, approximately. So that is the second part of option 2. And I would like to just outline that Mrs. Latman, who is the manager of environmental planning, and Mr. Root, who is the region forester and woodland conservation bylaw officer, are with us here today if you have any questions about that bylaw.
Thank you. If I have, may ask one question. So I find it interesting that we get a development proposal, and if the trees are all gone, then planning will go back to Google Maps, and that's how you determine the number of trees that were taken down?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, it wouldn't be Google Maps, but it would be our official plan and zoning bylaw mapping, and it would identify those natural heritage features.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Clears that up quite a bit, I would think. Again, back to me, the question. Planning department would like to see a decision here today as opposed to putting it off.
So back in November, when town staff presented the Natural Heritage Asset Management Plan, council asked us to bring forward options for preserving the tree canopy. And that's what this report is today. So the options are at your discretion.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Any other comments? I'll go to Councilor Wink.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I agree with some of Mr. Jones's comments with respect to developers knocking down all the trees and then coming to us for site plan approval and whatever. There's got to be ramifications built into those applications that those trees and then some get replaced. Now, our current policy is if a tree on public land gets knocked down, that we replace it with 3. I would suggest that we even do it more punitively and add more trees, because if you cut down a 60-foot tree and you plant 3 little sticks, it's going to take a long time to replenish the canopy and the benefits to the environment. So I'd certainly like to see that developers are discouraged, and then also if they do knock down trees, that they're having to replant numerous trees for every one that they take down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I'll go back to the director again, if I may. Once we do find out the number of trees, because I can understand that a developer, let's face it, they do go in and they do clear cut. And even if they do leave trees, that tree is in the middle of a street or in the middle of where a house is going to go, unfortunately, that tree's going to go. That's how it's going to go. So knowing that, at the same time, we do want to have trees planted. And I realize that the one developer just south of Port Robinson Road, I believe he's putting 4,500 trees in his, when he's all said and done, which is a significant number of trees in a development. So do we have, we go back and we look at the number of trees that have got destroyed, do we have a set ratio for that going forward?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask Ms. LaRocque if she could help me out answer this question. But it's my understanding that our current policy regime, we don't have a current ratio. When a development application comes forward, we look for environmental impact studies to help us with that natural feature and determine the appropriate next steps and course of action. And maybe Ms. LaRocque can follow up.
Any further comments, Ms. LaRocque, on that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the policy that's being referenced is a policy that's currently contained in the environmental policies in the Niagara official plan. And that policy really relates to natural features. So it's woodlands, wetlands, that type of thing, not individual trees on properties. And so it would be based on area. We have mapping that generally shows the location and the size of these features. And should they disappear in advance of a development application, then it would be treated at the time of application as if they're still there and they still exist. So it would be that land area that's preserved and any required buffers.
Okay, excellent. Maybe just any other questions to Councilor Nesnick?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. So I'm just asking Ms. LaRocque, I guess, so this doesn't cover any scenarios which Mr. Jones outlined that occurred, say, on Emmett Street, where there, that is an old sub-street with many mature trees, and the landowner went in, tore the house down, then took down 8 trees. So that would not, what we currently have would not cover such a thing, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. The policy protects natural heritage features. Individual trees are not considered natural heritage features.
So as a follow-up, so option 2, which states woodlands between 0.2 and 1 hectare. So when I converted 0.2, that's half an acre land size versus and up to 2.4 acres, which that would cover that. So what about, is there another caveat that we could add into that with regards to single home properties to help protect or reinvest in trees if they do such a thing as well, because they would have to come to you for permits and that sort of thing. So just wondering if maybe that could be reworked into option 2. I too am just not really comfortable with the private tree bylaw as it is. I think it would be too onerous to manage and to follow and to police, basically, and I think an owner, like we love to have as many trees around us as well, just for shade and air breeze and air quality, that sort of thing. So I think we need to give our residents credit that they usually only cut down a tree if it is either damaged or injured, or for some reason they need to remove it to put up a shed or a building or maybe a pool. But I think most people like their trees as well. So I think we need to give residents some leeway in that. But is there something we could add into option 2 for that? Just a question. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Niznik. Part of option 2 is for us to consider policies as part of the new official plan that we are preparing. That's something that we, I think, have heard already from some, that there is the desire to allow for replacements when we have applications come in for infill and intensification and redevelopment and that type of thing, to allow the replacement of trees that are removed through those processes. So we can take that back, and I would consider that is part of option 2.
To the Mr. CA, thank you, Councilor Nesnak. To the CAO.
I think I have 2 points that might be helpful, and I don't know if this would be a fair question to Ms. LaRocque or not, but if not, then I'm certainly hoping a regional staff member, particularly one who enforces tree bylaws, may be able to offer some insight. But there's a key point we didn't tease out too fully in the report, which is you can designate heritage trees or significant community trees. And I think for clarity, to be abundantly clear, the town of Pelham can't pass a tree bylaw that's used to fundamentally thwart the purpose of the Planning Act. There is no world where a private tree bylaw can get used so that somehow subdivisions can't be built and to stop. We have a goal of 29,000 homes, and they fundamentally all have to be built. The overwhelming majority of those have to be built in the urban boundary. That's where we're heading. So we couldn't pass one and say, well, we've protected those trees, so now we can't build homes. And just to be abundantly clear, that is not on the table, even if we do end up with a private tree bylaw. But option 2, there is a legal capacity to designate something as a heritage tree. We have a comfort maple, and NPCA is involved there, and so everyone thinks about that. But it's not like there's only one beautiful, impressive, significant tree. And we're fortunate enough here to have a number of species, cherry birch, that are endangered. And there's a process for that and a series of protections for that. I don't know if Ms. LaRocque can speak to that. And if not, then we do treat regional staff as town staff for the purpose of being able to answer questions at council meetings. And we happen to have 2 experts in the room. So maybe we could tease that out, because I think that offers a level of protection that is being, unless I misunderstood everything that's said this morning, that's being sought by PATH and those they represent. So I think there is a middle ground in here that would at least help us protect very significant trees. Right.
To Ms. LaRocque, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not entirely certain of the process to designate a heritage tree. I assume it's very similar to that required to designate a heritage property. But if there are trees that are designated as heritage trees and delegation for enforcement of the woodland bylaw is passed on to the region, those trees would be able to be enforced under that bylaw. And perhaps, do you have information about that? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to regional staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. LaRocque. And I want to thank both regional staff members for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, the bylaw contains a provision that allows local area municipalities to designate trees as either heritage trees or significant community trees. And upon delegation of authority to protect those trees, they are protected by the Woodland Conservation Bylaw. So the Municipal Act in Section 135 is the act that gives municipalities authority to regulate trees. The Municipal Act divides up authority for tree protection between regional municipalities and local municipalities, and the dividing line is woodlands that are greater than 1 hectare in size. So Niagara Region does not have authority through the Municipal Act to regulate any trees that are in woodlands smaller than 1 hectare or an individual tree on private property, unless, per Section 135 of the Municipal Act, the local area municipality delegates that authority to Niagara Region. So currently, because our bylaw contains language in it allowing for this to occur, if the town of Pelham were to delegate that authority to us and identify the trees that are being protected by that bylaw, or through that delegation, then they would become regulated by the woodland bylaw. Currently in Niagara region, there are only 2 trees that are delegated through that process, and they're both in the city of Niagara Falls. So in Pelham, for instance, you mentioned the comfort maple. There is another process by which trees can be designated heritage trees. That's more of a Planning Act process, where that's actually through the Heritage Act. But even if you were to go through that process, those trees wouldn't be regulated by our regional bylaw unless there was an explicit delegation of authority to do so. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
And while the representatives are at the microphone, any other questions to the regional staff at this time? Okay, thank you for that then, and we'll continue on. Councilor, Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the options that are presented, clearly option 1 is not acceptable. We can't just maintain our current plan for that. And I'm also hesitant to just throw out option 3 without getting further investigation into finding out exactly what that would look like. I have difficulty with, as other councillors do, about regulating what a private landowner does with their property because of what, a tree might be in the way. So I have some difficulty with that, but I don't think we should throw it out at this point because I think there's a lot more information that we could look at. But in regards to, so I'm kind of leaning towards maybe a beefed up option 2. But I have one of my questions is, so we're talking about the area north of Summerside where developer buys a property, and we know it's going to happen again, where they go in, they clear cut everything on there, and then they come for the development. I'm not hearing anything in here that stops that from happening in the future. And my fear is that developers are just going to incorporate this into a cost of doing business. So they're going to go in, they're going to clear cut, and go, oops, what's the penalty? Like what, or how can we stop it, prior to it happening? I mean, if a resident calls in and says, hey, there's all this equipment on this property and they're about to clear cut, what options does the town have to say cease and desist until, am I making myself clear or am I mumbling?
Well, again, before we go to planning, development is development, and we're not pitching tents, and we're not going beside a tree, whether we like it or not. We do have urban boundaries, and within that urban boundary, houses are going to be built. We were mandated to go from 18,000 to 29,000. That's not by me, that's not by the council, that's not by planning, that is by the province. When it comes to planning, the province is the one that tells us what to do. And once it's inside the urban boundary, somebody as needing, or as I call it powerful, but not, and for an example, NPCA, if outside the urban boundary, their word is law. Me being a farmer, NPCA comes along and tells me that I can't go into that water course, I can't do this, I can't do that. I have to go with that. But inside the urban boundary, they are an advisory committee, if I'm an advisory body, I believe. They can tell us, well, let's put it this way, they can't direct what's going to happen. They can give their opinion on something, but inside the urban boundary, they're not very strong. They're not a strong group. I'll go back to the planning and go back to Councilor Eckert's questions.
Yeah, through you, the mayor, to Councillor Eckert. There's two parts of option 2. The second part is to enhance the woodland conservation bylaw as identified by regional staff and outlined earlier this morning. The first part is to enhance our OP policies through our current process that we're undertaking with the new official plan that would allow those areas within the urban boundary that are proposed for new development to withstand the natural features mapping that exists today, even if a developer or a property owner came in to take down those trees. So we would still be held to the standard of the mapping, not the whether the trees are there or not.
Okay. I guess part of my point is that we've heard earlier today about other developments in the town. For instance, one north or south of Port Robinson Road where the developer is going to plant 4,500 trees. And to my knowledge, I think there was a lot of discussion with the developer, with the town, with PATH, and there was agreements made. I know with Kunda Park, there was agreements made about the Steve Bauer Trail and that sort of thing. That's kind of where I'm going with this. Like prior to them going in with equipment and just clear cutting, and then there's really no deterrent that I see anyway. There's no deterrent to them of doing that. I would like to see, some thought go into, rather than just clear cutting, just say, okay, where can we, how do we, I know we have to build houses, Mr. Mayor, I totally agree with you, but okay, how can we situate this subdivision and save as many trees as we can and still plant more for the ones that we take down? That's kind of where I'm going. I don't know if that's a pie in the sky attitude, but,
So if I may, if I can go one level up, the Niagara region played, we went anti-developer. They wanted us to restrict the natural heritage systems maps, and at the regional level, I believe that we pushed them aside, and what we ended up with was a lot more land that would not be able to be touched. And correct me if I'm wrong, once we have any natural heritage systems, they do have to work around those maps. Am I correct there, Madam Planner?
Yes, so through you, the mayor, again to Councillor Eckhart, that is part of option 2. That is the enhancement of the OP policies, yes. And furthermore, maybe as the second part of option 2, I could ask regional staff to explain enforcement if council was to choose to increase the woodlands bylaw from greater than 1 hectare to 0.2 and greater.
Any comments on that, sir?
So the woodland bylaw.
Can you turn your mic on, please? Thank you.
Hello?
Yep, thank you.
The woodland bylaw, as I said, applies to trees that are in woodlands of a certain size. So in a scenario that's been raised where a developer is planning to cut trees in a woodland feature, once the developer has broken the rules in the bylaw, once a developer has violated the bylaw, a stop work order could be issued, and then there could be fines and a court case and penalties as prescribed in the woodland bylaw. So the woodland bylaw prescribes maximum fines of $1,000 per tree or $10,000, whichever is greater for an individual, and then when it's a corporation, those fines are higher. These are Part 3 charges under the Provincial Offences Act, so these aren't tickets. These will, when charges are laid, it results in a court case. And so then when we charge landowners with violations of the woodland bylaw, it's our policy to always seek restoration of the feature to its original extent as much as possible. So that way, if a developer or landowner has violated the bylaw, they're paying a fine, and in addition to that, they're reforesting the area to its original extent. So that takes away the sort of cost of doing business advantage that a developer could try to get by circumventing some of the Planning Act policies. And we also have the ability to issue orders to replant that can be external to a legal process, where a landowner is given an opportunity to replant trees that they cut, and if they fail to do that, then they get charged under the Provincial Offences Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a comment to make on the fine per tree. I remember reading some years ago that if you chop down a tree without permission in Japan, it's $50,000 a tree. So I sometimes wonder if maybe we shouldn't be, I don't know what steps you'd have to take as a province to maybe make it hurt a little more if you start bending the rules that much. Anyway, just saying. Any other, I think, I'll go to Councillor Kerr.
Just one last comment. I mean, I think we're all in agreement relative to large-scale development and the issues surrounding that and the problems that have come. My reason for not supporting number 3 is that this brings it down to the individual single-family dwelling potentially being put in, and I think it's putting the staff into a huge amount of effort to try and find a way to protect a homeowner, but also now hamstringing even to a greater degree a homeowner that's trying to do something. In some cases, I've been heavily involved with stuff where people have removed a large tree and planted a large number of smaller trees, which have turned out to be significantly better for the property in the grand scheme of things in terms of soil management, erosion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Going to a situation of permits and that I think my view is let's get the official plan going. I'm personally for option 2, get it and go forward. I'm not for option 3, and option 1, the feeling is status quo isn't good enough, so that's my feeling. I'm going to vote for option 2.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a, Councillor Olson?
Yes, can I get a direction from you, Mr. Mayor? Because it makes reference here to the provincial planning statement of 2024, which contained a number of things in that report, and specifically wetlands. And I know what we're talking about is here today is woodlots or woodlands. But I think this is the opportunity for us to establish a policy for wetlands. But I'll ask you if that's okay if I go on with this, Mr. Mayor.
I would think myself that the agenda states that we're looking at the tree bylaw. To the clerk?
Yes, the discussion should be germane to the main motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Wetlands is out.
Okay, so we've discussed this. Is there any councillor that would like to put forward a motion for option 2, or for any option? Councillor Wink.
So I'd like to combine 2 options, combine 1 and 2, because 1 talks about maintaining the current approach and working in partnership with community initiatives with organizations of MPCA, Violent Research, PATH, and other private and public partnerships. I don't want to lose that. So I don't have a problem in keeping 1 and 2 at this point in time. And, trust that the official plan is going to incorporate a lot of the concerns on the private tree bylaw on number 3. So, yeah, I'd like to put forward a motion to accept 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you. And is there a seconder for that motion before we can discuss it? Councillor Olson, you'll second that motion? Yes, sir. So that is now on the floor, a motion to direct staff to accept 1 and 2. Any other further discussion on that motion before us now? Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Thank you. Just a question. So if I listened to Councillor Wink's motion, there was, it was 1 and 2, but there was some mention of things from 3 incorporating its way in. Is that what?
No.
Okay.
I suggested that with the update of the official plan, that some of those issues in 3 would be taken care of. But 1 and 2 strictly.
Okay, so I heard you say that, I just didn't know in what context. Okay, thank you very much.
Perhaps I can get the clerk to read the motion before us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so it would be that the motion is amended to add option 1 and 2 to the second recital, and then we'll do an amendment to the motion as amended.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Council Nesnick?
Just thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dr. Dusling. Just wondering if there is anything in option 1 that would contradict option 2? Or can go hand in hand quite comfortably? It looks like they can, but I just want to make sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Any other comments on the motion? If, Councilor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly appreciate the presentation that PATH has given us and the direction we've been given from staff and all the research that's been done. It's a very complex issue when you get to the private landowner and having to build homes to meet the government regulations. It's trying to fit houses around trees rather than vice versa makes it very complex. I like the proposal by Councillor Wing, which I think is a viable option, which is combining option 1 and 2 together. I think viewing the complexity of the issue, that would be an option I would support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those words. Any other comments before I call the vote? I will now call the vote. All those in favor of the motion before us, please raise your hands. And I see none opposed. Motion carries.
And to you, Mr. Mayor, I am looking for a mover and a seconder to the motion as amended. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2025-0057, Tree Protection Practices in the Town of Pelham for information, and that Council directs staff to undertake options 1 and 2 presented in this report to enhance tree protection practices in the town. So just a mover and seconder before you call your vote.
Thank you. Councilor Wink, you will move. Seconder, Councilor Olson. Again, any further debate on the proposal as amended? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. A motion carries.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next item, 11.2.2, green wall at the MCC. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Nisnik. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2025-0060, green wall project at the Meridian Community Centre for information, and that Council endorse the installation of a fully integrated green wall system at the MCC pending a successful grant application. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this proposal? Go to Councillor Nesnick.
Yes, thank you very much. Although the idea is wonderful, and I understand it would be grant dependent and pending a successful grant application, I'm not sure during this time of fiscal responsibility and all of our other financial considerations that are coming down the pipe, and given the state of our union at the moment, this would be a fiscally responsible direction to go. I think it's a lovely idea, but I will not be supporting it. Because when I read the one caveat here that says annual maintenance service for this type of system is estimated at $7,700 per year, I just can't support that because that would not be part of the grant that would be included. And I don't think our town has $7,700 to spend on upkeeping a green wall at this point in time. So those are my thoughts on it. We did, when in our schools, we had a green initiative as well, where we did do some planting with some green plants in a hydroponic container. We did it the first year. It was fairly successful. And then it sat in the corner for the next 6 years until we finally disposed of it. So that would be that would be my concern, that this would be a difficult thing to maintain in an ongoing process, and, paying a company to come in and spend $7,700. I just think we can use that to either beautify the town or use it in the funds more financially responsibly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Nesbitt, for those words. Any other, Councilor Kerr?
I agree wholeheartedly with Councilor Niznik. I think it's the ongoing operating costs that are the hidden part of this whole thing. In talking with others, there's the classic needs, wants, would be nice. Personally, this fits in would be nice, but our fiscal position and something we're going to discuss much later in today's session of our financial position, some things that are coming at us with rather significant expenses. Even if there is a grant, I think this is, at this time, it's not warranted. I can't support it.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Wink.
Yes, I support Councilors Niznik and Kerr. We've got a facility that is something that's the envy of every municipality in the region. But to be very blunt, to have that, we're still costing us $1 million a year. So to add on more operating expenses onto this, like the concept is great, and I understand all the benefits from it, but the hard deterrent to it is the additional expenses ongoing. So, and right now it's $7,000 a year to maintain. Who knows what it's going to be like 3 years from now? So I will not be supporting this.
Okay, thank you. My own opinion on this is, number one, I want to thank staff for bringing this to council. I think it's a great initiative myself. I think we've all seen green walls in hotels and wherever they are, and they are pretty impressive looking, 20 or 40 feet of a leaf area inside of a room. It is impressive. I guess I was myself, I'm all for this, to tell you honest. I think it'd be a great thing to have it in the MCC. The fact that the grant money it would have been paid for all by grants. I realize that $7,000 is indeed $7,000. Anyway, I just think that it would have really set the MCC off. And I thank staff for bringing this to us. The fact that it was going to be paid for by grant money, which is probably going to be out there because of the coming election at the federal level. But it is what it is. Councilor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that we're sort of zeroing in on Model 2, which is a great idea, but I would not support that, especially when you look at the yearly maintenance cost. But I was more intrigued with Model 1, and I don't know why we're kind of bypassing that one. I just wanted, that's a much lower installation cost. If it's covered by grants, great, and the approximately $300 per month. That, to me, might be attractive if we got grant, if it's red flagged that we get a grant for that. And I'm wondering if maintenance can't be included in the grant application, at least for a period of time. I don't know, but I certainly can't support at this time number 2. The only one I might consider would be Model 1. So, thank you.
Let me go to the CAO, Mr. Cribbs, for any clarifications on 1 and 2.
Well, Deputy Mayor Eckert does flag there are sort of 2 different products and 2 levels of service, if I can call it that. And option 1 is less expensive, both to create and to keep upkeep on an ongoing basis. That being said, this is I think, a really nice, beautiful idea. And it was certainly conceived of before tariffs were started yesterday and before the roads became obliterated in a freeze thaw in the last 2 weeks, right? This is months of work by a lot of people. So it's all about timing. If I can suggest, either if there's some will to support the smaller project, then we do feel we're likely to be successful with the grant applications, and 300 a month is 3,600 a year. That's a modest amount, but if that's unacceptable, we certainly respect the will of council. Perhaps your direction can simply be to revisit this in the event we are successful with the much larger project, looking at possibly solar installation on the roof of the MCC. That is expected, if technically viable, don't know that yet, but if we are successful, that should deliver something in the order of six-figure savings for the operation of the MCC. And if we can obtain six-figure savings for the operation of the MCC, I think it's entirely fair to suggest or imply that we could take $8,000 a year of those savings and create and invest in a green wall within. That might be a reasonable way forward. It would more than pay for the initiative. You get both things, possibly.
I'll throw that out to council. Council Kerr?
I just did the math. The bigger one works out to $91 a square foot annual maintenance. The smaller one is almost $45 a square foot for annual maintenance. $45 a square foot for maintenance.
Okay.
I'm just, it doesn't sound like much, but if I had to pay $45 a square foot to maintain my house, I'd go berserk. So I think it's premature. I don't think we have the resources. It's the ongoing costs. It's a nice, as I said, it's a nicety, it's not a need. So my position is a no-go.
Okay. Is there any, Council Nesnick?
Sorry, just one through you, Mr. Mayor, just one follow-up as well. And, you know, we talk about, even in option one, it would be a manual watering, that sort of thing. When I'm at that MCC, I see it's a very, very busy, wonderful place being fully utilized. We have a limited number of staff. That staff is already fully engaged in their tasks and are moving steady, doing things, sweeping floors, washrooms, arena, ice, garbage. They're busy, 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 busy all the time. And to add another task to their agenda, I think would be unfair at this time as well.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Is there any appetite for revisiting this after the installation, or if we do indeed find that we can have solar panels installed, or what's the thought of this council? Do you just not want to address this again? Councillor Wink.
So just a quick comment on the CAO's comment about if we have solar panels, we will save thousands and thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands.
Or hundreds of thousands of dollars that can go towards the operating costs of the MCC that is in a deficit annually of approximately $1 million. $1 million. So I would not be in favor of bringing this back at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Lockhart?
Through you, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry. You look so much alike. I'm sorry.
Lucky you, I know.
Councillor Hildebrand, my apologies.
I agree with my fellow Councillor Wink. I would not be in support of this. My mother was a green thumb, but my wife is not the same person. Unless you get this person who's a green thumb looking after a green wall, you're going to have a dead wall in a year. I've seen that in other places where they put in a green wall, and it's good for the start. But once the person who's in charge or who takes care of it is there, it's a dead wall.
Yeah.
So I will not be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Then if that is indeed the feeling of council, what's the direction, Madam?
Mr. Mayor, if this motion is defeated, that would be mean that the report would not be received. So I would recommend it would be more appropriate to divide the motion, and we can do two separate votes. You can use the same movers and seconders if you'd like, and I could read the motion out for you.
Please.
Okay, very well. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that council receive report 2025-0060, Green Wall Project at the Meridian Community Centre for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we'll vote on that now then. Any other questions or comments? So all those in favor of receiving the report? Thank you, and I see none opposed. Madam Clerk?
And thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that council endorse the installation of a fully integrated green wall system at the Meridian Community Centre pending a successful grant application. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I will call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, I don't see any hands. All those against? Okay, thank you, council. Motion is defeated. Thank you. Don't have to say that very often. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Our next item is 11.2.3, Administrative Penalty Bylaw. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Eckert. Be it resolved that council receive memo 2025-0064, Administrative Penalty Bylaw 2025 updates to Schedule A for information, and that council approve Bylaw 12-2025 in principle.
Thank you. Any discussion on this agenda item? Questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries. To the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next item is 11.2.4, Proposed Policy for Repurchase or Transfer of Interment Rights Without Certificate. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that council receive report 2025-0070 for information, and that council approve policy number S802-05, Repurchase or Transfer of Interment Rights Without Interment Rights Certificate. To you,
And
Mr. Mayor.
And if I may correct you, Madam Clerk, it's internment.
Okay. It's
Internment, perhaps.
No.
interment.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, through you, there are two words. One is internment, one is
Yes.
interment. Interment is the word that's in the Funeral Burial Services Cremation Act, and it means the placement of human remains in a niche or a crypt or a lot.
Yes.
Internment is what you know, it's a different word.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I just got, yeah.
It was worth getting out of bed today.
I corrected when there was no need to correct. There we go. Any discussion on this item? I apologize to Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm afraid to discuss.
In that case, I'll just call the vote. All those in favor? Excellent. I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Our next item is 11.2.5, 1415 Station Street, Recommendation Report, OPA-ZBA-OP-AM-01-2024 and AM-09-2024. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that council receive report 2025-0049, Recommendation Report, applications for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 1415 Station Street for information, and that council direct planning staff to prepare the necessary official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for council's consideration at the next regular council meeting. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And of course, council will remember we just had this before us at the planning, at a planning meeting, a great development on Station Street. Any further comments or questions on this development? Councilor Nesnick?
Yes, just a comment that I will not be voting in favor of it at this time. I still believe that I'm very disappointed to see that the back property line has been reduced from 6.0 meters minimum to 1.48 meters. To me, that's a very narrow backyard and would impinge the future residential development on the other side negatively, as well as I don't even know whether that would be a safe distance if a ladder had to get up to those top second and third floors. Yeah, 1.45 meters, which is only 5 feet. So that's a 5 feet from the property line, which is quite different from if it was from the front property line, because there's also the boulevard plus the street line. So that's where it's different. Other than that, I think the development is lovely. I love the design. I love the side yards. The front is fine. The plan is fine. It just is too long, and we have to stop covering every square inch of our properties. And if we continue to allow developers to stretch the size of these properties on these infill locations, we're just going to be doing this on a constant basis. So I think we need to send a message that those lot lines or those minimums are there for a reason, and they should be respected when you're planning a development and a building.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Counselor? Any other counselor or any other comments before I call the vote? Not seeing any, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And any opposed? See one opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Our next item is 11.2.6, Community Safety Zone Implementation. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2025-0068 for information, and that Council approve the adoption of the Community Safety Zone Policy S801-14 as appended, and that Council direct staff to prepare the necessary bylaws to allow for the implementation of the community safety zones identified within Appendix A of this report. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this report? Councilor Nesnick.
Sorry, excuse me, through you, just a question, I guess, to, is it Mr. Marr that would have developed this? Just a question of the safety community zone with regards to the Pancake Lane, so 38 meters west of Hay Street to 208 Pancake Lane. There's no school in that area. There's no, it's not a highly traffic area. So I'm just wondering, that's the one, it would be going west, correct, on Pancake Lane? Or am I misinterpreting that?
I'll ask,
It's 460 meters. It's the second one.
I'll ask the director for clarification, please. Jason Marr.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So it is on Pancake Lane, west of Hay Street.
Right.
So there is a pedestrian crossing there with respect to the trail access. For the actual Pancake Lane is signed as a community safety zone from Effingham Road to Haste, or 38 meters to the west of Haste. The bylaw shows that it's from 208 Pancake Lane to Hay Street, or sorry, yes, 208 Pancake to Hay Street. So this is the area that would be approaching the urbanized section of the road, the urban area. Also, that would encompass the access to Hillcrest Park, which is one of the designations for a community safety zone. So it would cover the pedestrian crossing over the Steve Bauer Trail, and it also would include the entrance to the park at Hillcrest.
Okay.
Now, just to add to that, staff have completed some traffic calming experiments in that area. We installed the rubber speed cushions last year. We found that those speed cushions that were put in place did reduce the speed of the traffic. So we are looking to implement some permanent measures there as well, which coming into the urbanized area from a rural section would reduce traffic coming into approaching Hay Street.
So I guess I'm just back as a follow-up, just wondering why that street is more special than some of our other streets that are coming to town from the rural to the urban.
To the director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this community safety zone was designated by previous council. So the intent of this policy and this report and the recommendation is that the decisions that previous councils have made, we left as is, so status quo. If council wishes to further investigate the traffic on Pancake Lane, as well as the community safety zone on Hay Street is basically the full length of Hay Street, crossing Highway 20 all the way to Brewerton. So it is a long stretch of roadway. In that area, there are some sensitive uses. But since the implementation of that community safety zone, the town has implemented as well traffic calming measures on Hay Street, all the way from Welland up to Highway 20. So there would be possibly an opportunity to do some further investigation on those two existing community safety zones to determine if those are the correct limits or whether those should be adjusted. So, but for this report, what was approved in the past remains as the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I was just querying that, so I'm satisfied with that explanation. Thank you.
And if I could just ask the director a question before I go to Council or Deputy Mayor Eckert. Is there a, considering that haste is already rather long, I take it that there's no guidelines, let's say provincial guidelines that regard the placement of a community safety zone, and B, the length of those community safety zones? Or did we just not follow through with that on Hay Street and made it as long as we did? What's the answer to those questions, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, you're correct. The Highway Traffic Act does not stipulate lengths of community safety zones. The establishment of community safety zones and the requirements to designate those are at the discretion of council. We have looked at other municipalities, one being the region. They've got a pretty robust policy with respect to the implementation of community safety zones. In that respect, regional roads are different from local roads mostly. So the requirements, if we were to apply their requirements and conditions to meet a community safety zone, we probably wouldn't establish any in the town, with respect of a couple around some elementary schools and secondary schools. So we have done some research with City of Welland, Niagara Falls, and Oro Medonte seem to have a good handle on what they use to establish community safety zones, and that kind of guided where we went with this policy. But then again, it's completely up to council's discretion on how and where and you implement a community safety zone.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll go to Councilor Kevin.
It's, yeah, I think what's in here is talking about there's no absolutely hard and fast measuring criteria. If we utilize somebody else's criteria, we never fit. Yet we all receive comments from citizens within this town about issues of safety and travel and pedestrian protection and the variety. I think this is what, in terms of reading what's been put in here, is it's a policy to guide the use is what we're looking at. It's not an absolute measurement system. It allows us still the freedom to bring forth issues and then collectively make decisions. Admittedly, there's the biggest, often one of the challenges is when speed zones flip back and forth in a certain area, it drives everybody crazy. 50K, 40K, 50K. Mind you, if you've ever driven to the southern US and through some of the places down there on their highways and the infamous let's make money speed traps, they love that kind of stuff. But I think this is a great opportunity here to move forward with community safety zones. I think the process is there and that we have a chance to, and I'll be honest, I anticipate as our population grows, we're going to want to look at more safety zones. I noted, I think it was paragraph 2 was talking about that no formal policy, but it was using industry standard criteria outlined by the Ontario Traffic Council or the region. We would not have any. So sometimes we look at their measurements and it just don't fit for our town roads. So I just think this is a good policy update. It's a good position and it allows us to bring things forward and enhance the safety for the citizens.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to comment on Councillor Niznik's question about Pancake Lane. So prior to me being elected in my first year of council, I live right there, that crosswalk. It's heavily used during the school year with children coming from the subdivision on south of Pancake Lane. They use that crosswalk, or there's a walkway between that subdivision. They come to that intersection at the end of Cherry and Pancake, and they cross over, and they either go turn right and go up Pancake to Haste, or they continue on Cherry Avenue and go around to Haste. That was the #1 complaint with residents in that area. I observed it many, many times where people just don't stop for people that are waiting in the crosswalk. There was some very near misses. And the combination that staff have done with the signage, community safety zone, repainting the crosswalk and putting up those signs, and finally, the temporary speed bumps that were put in, the change there is amazing. And the first comment I got from, and I think somebody else, Shelley, you may have got, one of the residents over there said, what the heck did you take those speed bumps out for? Well, they're temporary. They had to come out for snowplows, but rest assured we're going to be doing something there. So that's why, and when I looked and saw that, I was very happy with that they kept it on there. I don't know if it needs the full length of Haste or Pancake down to Effingham, but certainly in that area it's made a heck of a difference for the kids trying to cross there. So
Excellent. Thank you for those words, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments on the report? I'm not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Next item is 11.2.7, purchase of 2 combination snowplows through Canoe. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2025-0069, purchase of 2 combination snowplow/spreader units through the Canoe Procurement Group for information, and that Council approve the purchase of 2 combination snowplow/spreader units through the Canoe Procurement Group for $721,790, including net HST, and that Council directs staff to fund the budget variance of $21,790 utilizing the 2024 Capital Fleet Project VEH-01-24 budget surplus of $19,741 and the remaining from the fleet reserve for $2,049. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Just before we start the discussion, Public Works at the region yesterday, we were talking about 19 new plows at the region. So they were bought and purchased, I believe 6, and lease the other numbers. But thank God we don't have to do 19. I'll go, if I can, although the report was pretty straightforward, any other additional comments from the CAO?
This is our, fairly excited, this is our first large use of Canoe. It's, in this case, the primary benefit is timing. It's half the time. Not different monetarily, but it's not different monetarily initially. The idea of getting the plows before the start of the season, and understand, like self-evidently, the oldest plow we have is the one that takes the most maintenance and is the highest maintenance costs. And so proceeding with this means it's highly likely that we'll have far lower maintenance costs come this winter and far fewer breakdowns, because we'll have 2 new plows for the entire season. So I hope we're through the worst of our winter. But, having just had a difficult winter, it would be lovely to be able to have these in place prior to the snow hitting, or right about the time, rather than at the end of the season. And that in and of itself is a huge benefit to the community, and I think ultimately the corporation too while we're at it. So it's a nice testing of Canoe, and Canoe showing its value. I think we were right to join that. And also this was administratively simple, and not that everyone does cartwheels over that sort of ease, but it helps us in our business operations. This was far simpler. So I've only heard positive amongst the staff who actually did the work. I haven't heard a single negative word on this, and very happy with the timing and the outcome of this. So I hope council shares that feeling.
Hey, thank you for those words, Mr. CAO. Any questions or comments? Go to Councilor Wink.
Just a comment with respect to Canoe and the ability that we're able to get those plows really quickly. Also comment to the budgeting process, because we got this RFP out very early, ahead of 19 snow plows in the region. So we were able to get this through. So kudos to all the staff that were involved in this. I think this, we're a little bit over budget, but not much, and it's definitely needed looking at what happened this past year. So congratulations to all staff on this.
Thank you, Councilor Wink. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries. To the clerk, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next item is 11.2.8, options to fill vacant Niagara Regional Council seat for the balance of the 2022-2026 term. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2025-0067 for information, and that the vacancy on Niagara Regional Council be filled through option number blank as outlined in the report. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. First of all, I believe it was the clerk's department that came up with the with this report. Very thorough in guiding us as to what steps we have to take here. I'll just leave my comments there. There was any other comments, suggestions from council to begin with right now? Any other comments on the report? Councilor, Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not, but having read the report, my preferred option would be 1B.
Okay. I don't have that in front of me. What is 1B, please?
1B is the appointment by call for applications.
Okay, thank you. Now, so there is 1A, B, and C, as you know. Is there, without any further comment from council, is there anyone, 1A, Councilor Olson?
Not 1A.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've given this a lot of thought, and I'd like to put my name forward as the replacement for the end of the full term of Councilor Hewson.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or any other councilor, first of all, any other councilor that would like to put their name forward at this time to fill the regional seat? Councilor Kirk.
I guess functionally, I think the question in front of us is what option are we choosing? And then once we've chosen that option, then we move forward as to who might fit in that. Is that not more a
Well, if we
mannerism?
if we take an option that doesn't include someone from council, then that would preclude anyone from council going ahead, right? I don't have my, to the clerk.
You're looking for the options here?
Yes.
So option 1C would be a direct appointment by council. So if you were to do the amendment, you would include in the second recital option 1C, and then further to that, you can appoint your member, and then we can do an amendment to that.
And I guess my only thing is that knowing that we have a council member that wants to go forward, if we were to choose option B, then that would be a different option than choosing someone from council, I take it.
No.
I'm sorry? Oh, go ahead, Ms.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if council was to choose the appointment by call for applications, that does not preclude any member of council from applying.
Yeah. Yes, but at the same time, we can also, before we got to that, we could also decide that we want to appoint someone from council, which is a different step.
That's correct. If it's the will of council to directly appoint a member of council to regional council, then you can do that today.
Yes.
Yes.
that would be option 1C, wouldn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So that's, so knowing that we do have, I guess we should vote on whether we want to do that. And then, so 1C,
Correct. Option
No,
1C
that's
would
not,
be.
okay.
that's selecting it.
Okay, so then if we don't want to do that, then we would move on to the appointment by applicants.
That's correct, option 1B.
Yes. And yes, if we have someone on council, Council Olson, if we decided that we didn't want to do 1C, then he would have the ability to go 1B. But I think that we should vote on 1C, first of all, to see if there's a majority of council that will go that way, and the majority of council says no, they don't want to just restrict it to that, they want to go to 1B, then we'll vote again.
So,
To the clerk.
Mr. Mayor, through you, so I'd be looking for an amendment then. So I'd need a mover and a seconder that the motion be amended to add the option that you do select to the second recital. And then you could, have your discussion and then call the vote on that.
Okay, is there a mover and a seconder to go with just option C? Councilor Nesnick?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so I'm comfortable with adding in and that the vacancy on regional council be filled through option number C, which would be direct appointment by council, seeing as we have one councillor interested in taking on that role.
Okay, so you're moving that?
I will.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councilor Eckert, you will second? Okay, what is that?
It's me, I'm confused.
Yeah. Wow. Councilor Hildebrand, you will second.
I'll call home and see what's the tonight.
You haven't been here for so long, yeah, whatever.
Oh, yeah, no, it's all-
Again, my
How it's my
apologies,
fault.
Councilor.
Yeah, now, that's what it feels like, eh? No.
Okay, so the move, Councilor Nesnick has moved option C. We have a seconder from Councilor Hildebrand. Discussion on option C. Any further discussion? If not, I'll just call the vote, and the majority of council says no, they don't want to go that way, then we'll continue on with another type of selection. Any other comments? Not seeing any. All those that will vote, that will are okay with adopting option C, that we appoint a council member to fill the seat, please raise your hand. And all those against? Okay, so, motion motion fails. So now, further discussion. Deputy Mayor Eckert.
I would move then that we consider option 1B.
Wait.
I don't think that motion failed.
No, it didn't. I'm sorry. If I voted on that, you're right. Can we have a re-vote? I'm sorry, that was my mistake.
That's fine, Mr. Mayor. I can read that again for you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Nisnik, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand, that the motion be amended to add option C to the second recital, and that would be the direct appointment by council.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Council,
Then is there pecuniary interest?
exactly. So,
You can't vote.
and you didn't vote that time, I noticed that.
No.
No,
Okay.
you didn't.
We abstain.
Yeah, so that's probably, yeah. Okay, so let's call the vote. Again, pecuniary interest, and no one can I'll tell you if you have a pecuniary interest. That's up to you to decide that, just so you know.
Well, that's why.
You'd have to go to the Integrity Commissioner for that. Anyway, so again, we'll call the vote for option C. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, wait, let's go to the
Right,
clerk.
to you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify if Councillor Olson is officially declaring a pecuniary interest. If he is simply withholding his vote, it is a vote in the negative. So I would just like to clarify that the councillor is officially declaring a pecuniary interest on the matter.
So Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll declare a pecuniary interest in the nature that's a conflict of interest on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yep, so then, let's vote in it and we'll go through it. So all those are option C to direct appointment by council. All those in favor, raise your hand. And all those opposed? And it's, so then Councilor Olson ends up a no. Is that how that works?
No, since Councillor Olson has declared,
Oh, it's still a tie, okay. So,
Correct.
So it's
Ties are defeated.
yes, defeated. Okay,
Yes.
so then we have to. So then, Madam Clerk, I take it we'll open back up to discussion and let another council to direct as to how we want to continue this.
That's correct.
Okay, Councilor Kerr.
I'd like to go a motion for 1B.
Yep. Okay. You want to move that, sir?
I'm moving,
Okay.
1B.
And is there a seconder for that?
Yes.
Councilor, Deputy Mayor Eckert. Okay, motion is now on the floor. Any further discussion? Councilor Nesnick.
Yes, well, I won't be voting in favor of that because I was in favor of option C.
Thank you. But now, of course, option C is no longer on the table, so you more than can go further up.
Okay.
Wait, to the, Councilor Wink.
So with option B, Counselor Olson still has the right to apply.
Yeah, yes, he does.
Yes.
But at the same time, it isn't option C.
So the reason for my going option B is looking at cost. So if we appoint someone from this horseshoe, we still will have to look at someone to replace that seat and potentially have a by-election, which will cost us over $30,000.
Or we can appoint again.
Or we can appoint, yes. But that's the reason I want to be able to look at all our options. That's the reason why I'm looking for a call for applications.
Okay. Thank you for that, Counselor. Any other comments? That's an interesting thing, is to hold a vote. If you hold the vote, it's a no. Okay. Any other discussion? Not seeing any, we'll call the question. All those, what do we, is it B now?
Yes, so there's an amendment with, moved by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Eckert, that the motion be amended to add option 1B to the second recital, and that is the option to call for applications.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of that motion? And all those against that motion? So that one also fails.
Tie, defeated, correct?
Yes.
So we would go back to the main motion for further discussion then? And Madam Clerk Leach.
Oh, Madam Clerk?
through you, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to remind council that option 1A, as per the policy, is not applicable in this case, as the runner-up did not receive 50% of the votes. So that would leave council with option 2 being a by-election at this time.
Okay, thank you.
If council would like to reconsider a vote that has already occurred today, that can occur. However, council would be voting, we would need the majority of members to vote in the affirmative to
So
reconsider.
So for reconsideration, you need 3, or not, 5?
Yeah,
5.
5, yes.
Yes. Okay. Any discussion from council? Council Nesnick?
Well, given that, I think I personally would like to also avoid a by-election, given the cost. So I will bring a motion to the table to reconsider option B, appointment by call for applications.
Thank you. You need a second? No, you don't need a seconder on reconsideration.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you do need a seconder,
Oh, we do
and
need a
then
seconder. A reconsideration, Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I also don't want to spend money on a by-election, and therefore I will change my vote. I'll be the second.
Okay, thank you. So now the motion is before us.
sorry,
Any
through you,
other-
Mr. Mayor, it's just the motion to reconsider at this time. You can discuss the merits of the reconsideration, and then the separate motion would come back for 1B.
Okay.
At this time, it is just a motion to reconsider.
Oh, okay, so this vote is just on the, so this is just on the application, on the motion to reconsider.
The original motion.
On the, to reconsider the original motion.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? Anyone need any clarification? Okay, so all those in favor of reconsideration? And all those against? Okay, so we will indeed go to reconsideration. Turn to the clerk.
Okay, and we still have the original motion, amendment to the motion that we can select the option. So option 1A, as Clerk Leach had indicated, is not an option. 1B, appointment by call for applications. 1C, direct appointment by council. And option 2 is the by-election. So I would be looking for a mover and a seconder to amend the motion, that it be to add the into the second recital the option that council so selects. So whether that be 1B, 1C,
Okay,
or
thank you.
option 2. Yes.
Anyone wish to put forward a motion on either B, C?
Correct.
Deputy Mayor Eckert.
I would put forward a motion to consider 1B.
Okay, thank you. Any further, no, Councilor Wink. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay, I don't see any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And one opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And now the motion as amended, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. And it would be resolved that council receive report 2025-0067, options to fill vacant Niagara Regional Council seat for the balance of the 2022-2026 term for information, and that the vacancy on the Niagara Regional Council seat be filled through option number 1B as outlined in the report. So I would be looking for a mover and a seconder for that, please.
We have Council Wink will move, and do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Eckert will second.
Okay, to you, Mr. Mayor, for your vote.
Okay, well, any further discussion? Not seeing it, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And I see none opposed.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to our next item, 11.
I'm sorry. The CAO?
Before we possibly move along, perhaps it would behoove us to have some further conversation about the significant, well, one, you might consider a bio break, but two, you've just given us a significant direction. You might have some questions about timelines, process, how that's going to work, or you might have some direction you want to give us. Told us we're going to accept applications.
Yes.
The question is, do we know what that entails?
I'll go to the clerk. Sarah, what is the municipal act? Does it give us timelines and what have you on that, or?
Yes, so the Niagara region has 60 days from the date of vacancy to fill that vacancy. They have given us a deadline date of April 18th. As they do the official appointment at Niagara Regional Council, we are simply going to be recommending a candidate for them to approve. So with that in mind, we do need to hit the ground running with applications. So at this time, I am thinking that we'll get a notice out this Friday with applications to go live on Monday. And that would be open for a 10-day period. And then hopefully have applications before council for March 26th.
Okay. Council, any questions to the clerk on that procedure? Not seeing, oh, Council Nesbitt.
So just pie in the sky wishes. Suppose you get 20 applicants. How will the applicant process be dealt with? Will all 20 be dealt with equally? Will there be a weeding of the applicants, or will we have to consider all applicants equally? I guess is my question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the applications would come before council in closed session. Council would have the ability to make a direct appointment on March 26th. If council feels it necessary to invite candidates back to do presentations, they have that ability. However, if you're able to make your decision, you can appoint right away.
Good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions to the clerk on this process? Councillor Wink.
So if at that meeting, let's say for instance, we get 20 applications and we whittle it down to 3. Then we don't make a decision. They've got each the right to come back in front of council in open session and provide a 10-minute speech. I'm not sure if we can get that done on that day, on the last meeting of March. Our next meeting after that is past the region's deadline.
Well, then we would call a special meeting.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the next meeting is April 16th, so we would be able to get a decision before
What was the region's?
the 18th, like
Okay.
2 days later.
Perfect.
So council could choose to invite applicants back to do a presentation, but it is within council's right to make the decision at the meeting on the 26th. We also have the ability to call a special meeting if council would like to consider those earlier.
No.
Yeah, he can apply.
So, I get, yeah,
But
just,
we don't have to
Right.
allow him to give a speech. We can whittle down the list to 2 or 3 people.
But then who decides whether we take it to 3, 5, or 6?
We do. We
Okay.
do on the 26th.
Okay, so we would vote on that then, as to how many we go for. Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Curry.
just a quick one, but on the 26th, we can just review the applications and not have to require anyone to come in and make an appointment at that time. Correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, excellent. Councilor Olson.
Well, a procedural question, Mr. Mayor, then I would have no vote in this, I imagine, if my name is forward. Is that correct?
To the clerk, or would you probably not comfortable in making that?
Yes, I can't speak to how council will
Yes.
evaluate the applications.
Yes, again, pecuniary interest are decided by the integrity commissioner if someone wants to take it there.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Assuming I would put my name forward.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
That's correct.
And perhaps I may suggest that if you do indeed follow through that, you might want to confer with the IT or integrity commissioner and get a ruling ahead of time. Or you can roll the dice, I guess.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the counselor does declare pecuniary interest at that meeting, since it is a closed session item, the counselor would be required to vacate the chamber completely and not even hear the discussion on other applicants.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. Any other discussion on this item? Not seeing any, so we will, Friday, we will be putting the application, we'll start the application process then, correct?
Yes, I will post a notice that applications will go live on Monday, just to give applicants some time to prepare, and then we'll have that open for a 10-day period.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Not seeing anything, any other comments? Turn to the clerk.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, our next item is 11.2.9, Winter 2025 Road Condition Inspection and Needs Assessment. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive memo 2025-0074 for information, and that Council approve $517,081, including net HST, of additional capital funds to complete additional road rehabilitation on Foss Road between the CP tracks and Belfour Street, and between Effingham Street and the town boundary, approximately 300 meters east of Hay Street, and that council approve the funding from the underspent road rehabilitation budgets RD-09-20 3 for $145,764 in RD-07-24 for $282,298 for a total of $428,062, and that council approve an additional budget of $89,019 to be funded from the Roads Reserve. A new project RD-17-25 will be set up called Foss Road Emergency Repairs for a total of $517,081. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this item? Councilor Wink.
So I've driven up and down these roads that that were brought up in this, and really, we don't have a choice in the matter. I thank staff for bringing this report. It's not something that we were jumping up and down about, but there's no way that we can keep Foss Road the way it is. And I agree with the comments in this report that it's likely that staff are going to come back to us in the spring or summer and ask for additional funds for some other roads, such as Kilman and Sawmill. So, yeah, I've been a stickler on the budget and whatever, but we can't do anything about this. Like, it has to be done, and I fully support the recommendations of town staff. My only question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Marr, one of the roads that is not on here is an urban road, and it's Pancake Lane. And we keep on punting Pancake Lane further and further down the road because we're waiting for the region to come along and say, well, we want to go and put water lines through Pancake and up Haste and down Highway 20 to the new water tower. What can be done to rehabilitate the road over and above without much expense? And I'm not saying this year necessarily, but I see the trucks on Pancake Road almost weekly putting coal patch down, and it's not getting any better. So just a thought on, put that on your radar and maybe think of some considerations on that particular street.
Any comments from the director?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the councilor is correct. We've noticed signs and have indications that there's failures on Pancake between Pelham Street and Hay Street. And that section of road is to be rehabilitated. Right now, it's sitting in the 2027 forecast. The region is intending to install a trunk water main that will go up to the new water tower from Schultz Reservoir, and they're planning on using Pancake Lane. So our portion, this design assignment started a couple years ago. We're sitting at about 85% complete on the design. So we know what we want. Now we're just waiting for the region to finalize their design so that we can incorporate the two and execute that project in 2027. The plan, and again, Pancake Lane is not the outlier. There's roads coming up every day now with respect to some major failures. And we're just going to have to try to address those the best we can through our patching program. There are, depending on how the condition of the road fares over the next few weeks, there are some other options we can look at for doing kind of a Band-Aid type fix. Don't like to do that ahead of a major reconstruction project, but that's something we'll look at and consider based on the condition of the road. And again, that's a high volume traffic road, so that it would warrant more attention than a rural road if it started to fail. One particular example that could be a quick fix we did on Merritt Road last year was to stabilize the shoulders with asphalt and then overlay with a surface treatment. That is actually one of the recommendations we're looking at doing on Foss Road from Effingham to the town boundary. That's kind of the application we would do there. So we'll just monitor it. We'll keep patching and try to keep the road in a safe, passable condition until such time that we can do a full road rehabilitation. But it will be a struggle. It'll be a strain on our capital resources to do that. This council approved a capital spend of $300,000 to do miscellaneous patching on roadways. This report says we're going to start spending that now, and we'll see where we end up. But the thought is that, and the expectation is that we'll exhaust that budget fairly quickly this year, and depending on the condition of the roads, we may have to come back to council to look for additional funds to continue that program on. But we'll use those tools that are available to us now to keep that road safe and operational in the meantime.
Councilor Wink?
Yeah, thanks for those comments. You know, it's not making this past winter's not making your job any easier. So appreciate everything that you're doing in this regard.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've had a chance to read the report and study the solutions we have here, and the roads are not just, they're not being pulverized, they're just disintegrating, and I've seen where the spots on the roads where we've got the flooding and all the rest of the stuff. I think that this money is well spent, and we're starting to see getting ahead of the roads, and this will be another opportunity to do that, and that's what reserves are for, and that's and surpluses are for. So this is a necessary thing. So I'll vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? Councilor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I also am in favor of the project. I know it needs to be done, but ours is not the only municipality that is having these problems. And one of the major components that I see in this rehabilitation is the asphalt plants and their opening date, because many other communities will be in the same place. Is there any chance of talking to the asphalt plant or the asphalt manufacturing boys to see whether we can get them to open earlier? Because obviously you're going to want to do it as soon as possible, and other municipalities may be in the same boat. Maybe we can talk them in and pray for the weather to be better and have them start sooner and save a few dollars. Just a wild thought to the director.
I'll turn to the director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so speaking on behalf of the asphalt producers in the region, I know that usually the normal schedule is that they open their plants mid-April, and it's basically based on volume of work that's available and also weather conditions. So there is opportunities to speak with the producers to see if there's an opportunity to open up plants earlier. Depending on the weather forecast, and if there's a sizable project that is out for quotation, such as the Foss Road one, they may elect to do that and open their plants earlier. With respect to other municipalities, we are reaching out to other local area municipalities to see if they've got the same requirements, and then possibly if there's enough interest there from other municipalities that are experiencing, and I can guarantee that we're not alone on this. There's other municipalities in the region that are experiencing the same type of road failures with the deep frost that we had and now the melt. So we're definitely going to reach out to those other municipalities to see if there's other programs that they're looking to put out within the next month, and hopefully there's enough interest from the local business community to make a business decision and open their plans up earlier, which would save cost with respect to the mix anyway, for sure.
Thank you. Councilor?
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it, because I don't mind driving to Hamilton to get asphalt right now, as we're doing, but I think it's far cheaper if we don't have to drive that far.
Excellent.
Thanks again for the staff report.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nesnick?
Yes, thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question to Mr. Marr. So with the construction of roads, I assume roads are developed, constructed differently to bear various weights. So I'm assuming Highway 20 is built to withstand heavier weights than, say, Pancake Lane. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. Pavement designs are based on traffic volumes, the type of traffic, the substrate conditions, and so regional roads would definitely be more robust and have a much more robust design in essence. So a lot of our rural roads were built using sand and gravel type base. It's not crushed stone. Most of our urban areas, and when we call a reconstruction project now, we used crushed limestone as a base. A lot of our rural roads were done with sand and gravel and overlaid with tar and chip. So those are the roads that seem to fail more often than our urban roads. But yeah, it's the design of the road depends on a number of factors, and mostly volume of traffic and the type of traffic that's on them.
Yes, so thank you. So given that, is there any way that we can put in some parameters to have heavy trucks with heavy equipment traveling on some of our rural roads, or, a limit to the tonnage of those vehicles on certain roads? I don't know if that's doable or possible, given that we live in a sand gravel pit area.
To the director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to throw this question over to Derek Young. He's our manager of engineering, and he can speak more with respect to limiting traffic and loads on roads.
Thank you. To Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So the town implements top-load season from 1st of March to the end. Forget about that, but sorry. The town has a bylaw where we implement a half-load season from March 1 through to the end of April, which means there's a maximum of a 5-ton load limit on all vehicles. So any vehicle that's more than a double axle vehicle will be over that, which means that the large articulated lorries can only use certain roads throughout the town. Like Pelham Street doesn't have the load limit on there. The former regional roads, some of them don't have them on there that the town assumed. And they predominantly stick to Highway 20 or the roads that are able to take those kind of weights. The town is not allowed to deviate from that because it's a provincial guideline. So we have to implement that on our local roads.
To the councillor.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I wasn't aware that that was even in place, so that's a good thing that that's in place, just because there was certainly a big heavy truck that I followed down Cream Street yesterday going north that was definitely over a weight maximum. So just wondering if that can be addressed somehow. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Any other comments on the report? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed, gentlemen? Thank you. Motion carries. To the clerk. Oh, so perhaps this is a good time to have a bio break. So we will have a 10-minute recess. Thank you.
Yesterday, I come up Pancake Lane to Effingham, and there is a transport truck stopped on Effingham Road, and he's backing up, and he turns left. We all had to back up, and he turned left onto
Okay, we will resume through you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 14, presentation and consideration of bylaws. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaw. Bylaw 12-2025 being a bylaw to amend Schedule A to the AMPS non-parking bylaw. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions, comments on this proposed bylaw? Not seeing any. I will call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to motions and notices of motion. We will begin with a notice of motion by Councillor Olson.
Okay, Councillor Olson, you have the floor. This is a notice of motion, yes.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be bringing forward a motion with respect to the runoff on Highway 20 at the Marlene Stewart Street Park. And it has to do with the fact that there's too much salt entering the upper 12 Mile Creek water system. And it was described to me as being like the Dead Sea, having this. And the result is that there's no brook trout on that particular branch of the stream. And but there's convincing evidence that there are lots of fish in the river except for the stream, except for there. So I'm going to be asking moving a motion that asks for a report back on, first of all, the maintenance of the facility at the bottom of before it enters the stream, which I believe is maintained by the region. And perhaps the maintenance that has to be done there to make sure that this doesn't happen, because one of the next projects that's coming for the 12 Mile Creek is going to be the restocking of that particular branch once it's reached a level where it has a proper level of salt in it, and that'll be another great environmental project for the town. So, and I'd like to have a report on that.
Okay, thank you, Council. We look forward to that motion coming to Council.
I will work with staff and make sure that we with an acceptable date and what is expected. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that brings us to a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Olson, with respect to Fond Hill Lions 80 years of service. I will read the motion into the record on Councillor Hildebrandt's behalf. Whereas the Fond Hill Lions Club, founded in 1945, is a proud member of the Lions Club International Foundation, one of the world's largest service organizations, with 1.35 million members in 46,000 clubs across more than 200 countries. And whereas the Fond Hill Lions Club has played a pivotal role in shaping the community fabric, contributing to developments such as Marlene Stewart Street Park, the Lions baseball field, and the lobby elevator at the Meridian Community Center. And whereas the Fond Hill Lions Club continues to support local causes through its fundraising efforts, benefiting organizations such as Pelham Cares, Wellspring Niagara, and the Welland Hospital Foundation. And whereas the Fond Hill Lions Club celebrates 80 years of humanitarian service, it remains a cornerstone of the community, upholding its We Serve commitment. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Pelham Council, together with its residents, formally recognizes and celebrates the Fond Hill Lions Club's 80th anniversary. We honor its members, past and present, for their unwavering dedication to service and are proud to stand alongside the Fond Hill Lions Club in this journey. We eagerly anticipate the continued impact of its service for generations to come. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Hildebrand, you are the mover. Any additional words?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to congratulate the Fond Hill Lions Club on 80 years of service. 80 years is an extraordinary length of time, and they, like many other great service clubs we have, provide opportunities and efforts that are well respected by everyone in the town. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Olson, you seconded the motion. Any further words?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was pleased to second the motion because I think I think this is a great example of service to the community, an example of leadership which comes from one of the members of the Lions Club who said he drew inspiration from the Lions Club and led him to be one of the better presidents. I think recently was Jimmy Carter, who he was a member of the Lions Club for, I guess he's probably a lifetime member, because he was one of his last things, along with his job as Sunday school teacher, was he was still a Lion. And I don't want to forget and omit the fact that the dogs, the seeing eye dogs, that's one of their big projects and the signature project. But these are folks that put on things like the speaking contest, which I attended on Sunday, which was well attended by kids and young people and their families, and at the Lions Hall, and conducted and adjudicated in a real proper fashion. And it was, we'll see the results sometime later on at one of their events. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. No doubt, 80 years in the community, it goes without saying that their service is very well appreciated by everyone, and done great things, great works in the community. Any other comments, questions from the council? Councilor Nesnick.
Yes, I'd just like to echo my congratulations also to the club. Certainly, my father was a lifelong member of the Lions Club, both in Fort Erie and then here when we moved to Font Hill. So certainly they have supported both our sports teams over the years as well. I'd just like to send out a kudos to that, because they're always willing to put their name on somebody's back, kid's back shirt. So thank you to that. And just looking, last night we attended our Volunteer Person of the Year that was recognized, B. Clark, and some of the words that were spoken with regards to volunteerism. I just would encourage any of our new residents or current residents in the town looking for somewhere to go and something to join. Both the Kinsman and the Font Hill Lions would be and the Fenwick Lions would be excellent locations to spend some volunteer time. So just encouraging folks to get out and get involved in our community.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion? I see none against. Motion passes. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that brings us to a motion moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink, with respect to the 2025 restaurant patio exemptions. I will read the motion into the record on the councillor's behalf. Whereas the town of Pelham is committed to supporting local businesses and strengthening the local economy, and whereas many businesses, particularly in the restaurant sector, continue to face ongoing economic challenges, and whereas council has previously granted special exemptions to waive the requirement for up to 6 parking spaces, enabling restaurants to operate temporary pop-up parking lot patios, an initiative originally introduced in 2020 to provide relief during COVID-19 occupancy restrictions. And whereas these exemptions were applied under the previous zoning bylaw, now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to prepare a report with the planning analysis on the feasibility and implications of continuing exemptions for restaurant owners and food vending vehicles under zoning bylaw 4481-2022 for the 2025 season. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Olson, I believe it was your motion. Any
Yes,
further words?
thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm convinced that the challenges that are going to be coming for our businesses are going to be a lot of financial and economic challenges, and I'm told that that is in fact the case from the month of January and February. Businesses and restaurants have approached me and said that this is going to be a very difficult time for them. And January and February were particularly slow for some of them. So they've, I think we know we can't create business success, but we can create the conditions for business success. So that's why I'm suggesting that this is something that we can do once again, and it's a year by year thing. We don't have to do it every year, but I think the time is now to let our businesses know that we're behind them and supporting them. along with other measures that we should be taking, like buying Canadian. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. And Councilor Wink, you're the seconder.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Restaurant owners, since COVID, have had a heck of a time with keeping their heads above water. Yes, we're past COVID, but the increased cost in food, the increased cost of labor, and the reluctance of people wanting to go into this industry. In addition, I believe that people are being a lot more frugal with their money, and they're not going out as much to restaurants as what they have in the past. Any small hand up that we can provide the restaurant owners, I think would be greatly appreciated. It's not a large impact to the town as far as license fees are concerned. And, you know, you drive down Pelham Street in the summer and you just notice all the people congregating in front of Gelato Village and just congregating and interacting with each other. It's heartfelt to see that and to see businesses trying to scratch out a living for themselves and for their employees. I think any time that we can try and assist, I think it's appropriate, and I thank Councillor Olson for putting forth this motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from any other councilors? Go to Councillor Kirk.
Yes, I'm fully supportive of the motion. I'm really glad to see that there's going to be an analysis done so we can look to the future, so we don't hopefully put ourselves in the position of what happened in the town of Niagara and the lake. That in theirs, they had made the patios permanent and then suddenly rescinded it, and it's going to end at the end of 2025. To me, that's just folly. You know, I like this, that we're going to have information coming back. I'm fully supportive of it. I think the ability to sit outside on a nice evening, because that's when the patios are operating. It's not in the middle of a rainstorm. It's to get people out and to socialize and other things. And I think anything, as has been mentioned, and I appreciate Councillor Olson bringing this forward to say, yes, let's give them a push forward. It's a smart way. So I'm very supportive of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nesnick.
Yeah, so just double checking that this is going to only focus on the parking lot patio with regards to them not needing 6 parking spaces. So that would actually eliminate the gelato one out front, because I don't think it takes up parking spaces, it takes up sidewalk spaces. So I just maybe we need to make it more fulsome so that it's just a report with planning analysis on the feasibility implications of continuing them to have patios, summer patios in general, not just parking lot patios. I don't know. What are thoughts on that?
I'll go to the Director of Planning. Do you need that clarification, or is the motion clear enough as it is?
Through you, the Mayor, I think the motion's clear enough. The discussion around the horseshoe has helped us, and we understand.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to the confirming bylaw. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Eckert. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and passed, being a bylaw number 13-2025 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Pelham at its regular meeting on the 5th day of March, 2025. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to an adjournment. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for March 26, 2025 at 9 a.m. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? See none opposed. I adjourn the meeting.